Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. I wish every day could be like this. Blue clouds, not too dark, a little bit breezy, no sun to roast my tits off and turn me into a roast chicken, just pure breeze. Nice cool breeze, help me relax. Which is just as well, because there are things that are currently sending a lot of people into a bit of a tizzy, including myself. Because it seems like Nigel Farage just can't control himself, can he? He just can't stop pissing people off. What's he done this time? Well, he's only gone out of his way to slag off his voter base. Tommy Robinson, Ben Habib, Rupert Lowe, those people. I mean, you would have thought he would have learned the first bloody time. Basically, what he's been doing is calling them insignificant nobodies, effectively. When last time I checked, I think Rupert Lowe is doing far more for this GR Ooming Gang investigation, and Tommy Robinson has done far more than you, Nigel Farage, regarding the GR Ooming Gangs, than what you and your party have ever done. You lied to the British people and you didn't deliver. To further bring the point home, you also went out of your way to libelously slander, knowingly that it was false. You slandered Tommy Robinson. Oops, sorry, there was a B there. You slandered Tommy Robinson and said he's a woman beater and a wife beater, when even his ex-wife came out and said that he's never been arrested for these kinds of things. Then you and your party had the nerve to say that Rupert Lowe had dementia, knowing full well that that was not true. And then there's the way you kicked out Ben Habib. I mean, I could go on, but the bottom line as far as that's concerned is, Nigel, these people have done far more than you ever will, with the exception of Brexit, which you also ran away from when we finally got it, quite frankly. So for you to sit there and say that Rupert Lowe, Ben Habib and Tommy Robinson are just a trio of nobodies is outright stupid at best and downright delusional at worst. If these people were truly nobodies, here's something else as well. If Tommy Robinson was truly a nobody, how come his silence documentary got 166 million views? Which I believe collectively is more views on that one documentary than you've ever had on your entire YouTube channel since it ever existed. And right now, Rupert Lowe is seeing to the government to see if they can help aid him in this GR Ooming Gang inquiry. Now, I suspect I know what the answer already is, but besides that, what have you done about it, Nigel? What's going on?
Is there a Greggs round here?
A Greggs?
Yeah.
I think you went past, actually. I think it's more along the main road down there.
Is it down there?
Do I actually see it over there? It might be over there, for all I know. Yeah, basically, you just got to try and find it along the main road. Thanks very much. And no, that's not where I'm going after this video's done. Anyway, the fact is, Nigel just doesn't seem to get it. It's like you would, as I said, you would think he would have learned the first time. Like, if I were to go out of my way, for example, and punch this, ow, fuck me, and obviously that would hurt. Do you think I'd do that again? Maybe if I was absolutely shit-faced, but guess what? I don't drink. But what Nigel is doing is effectively cutting his nose off in spite of his face, quite frankly. And considering he's pretty much a toffee nose, like a lot of the Tories and the Nonce Party, I mean the Labour Party, or maybe I was right first time, he should know better. Like, even if you could make the argument, and it could well be there for all I know, even if you could make the argument that Reform are the main opposition to the Labour Party, it doesn't change the fact that Nigel he doesn't do himself any favours with what he's doing. And obviously Zia Youssef also cost them a significant number of votes because of the civil blank that has been going on in the Reform Party. And of course him being part of the religion of the Bell End churches, the people who like to worship that man who loves snack bars. He ran his party like a dictatorship, or sorry, Nigel's party like a dictatorship. And in the meantime, trying to play the victim card while Nigel Farage tries to say there's racism going on, even though he knows that that particular religion is just that. It's a religion, not a race. Although I guess to some extent you could be forgiven if you saw the amount of people who then start sprinting down to the finish line and who can virtue signal the hardest. Anyway, the fact is, Nigel's not doing himself any favours, as I said. So the Reformians that are trying to say, Reform are our only hope, Reform are the only people who are going to be able to defeat Labour. You've got to remember, it's still early days. And Nick Tenconi has got a good 4 years to get himself prepared and into the ring. Now, if it was like he only had, like, I don't know, 6 months or so to prepare himself to get into the ring, then yeah, maybe devil's advocate, I could say, yeah, you know what, we need to back Reform. I do accept that Reform are much bigger than UKIP, and I do accept that Reform are probably the biggest party who can stand up to Labour. But as I've said before, and I will say here again, Reform are the Uni-Party 2.0. Because the oligarchy, if there's one thing they're good at, it's playing the crowd. I mean, they've basically been fucking doing it over the last 30 to 40 years. So what's stopping them from doing another 4? Oh sure, Nigel Farage sounds like he's a hard man and a tough guy in politics, but the truth is, he cozied up to Keir the traitor Starmer at one point. Which the Reformians, of course, are not going to want to tell you. So even if you could safely say, yeah, we'll get through the next 4 years without a civil blank, doesn't change the fact that Nigel Farage is effectively alienating a lot of his voters. And yes, I do see the other side of it. I can see why Nigel Farage wants to distance himself from Tommy Robinson. It's because he wants to get the vote of the NPCs, the normies and all that. The people who are still fast asleep. And obviously Tommy Robinson, as far as the media is concerned and as far as the establishment is concerned, is about as peaceful as a hand grenade in a minefield. So yes, believe you me, I can completely understand why Nigel Farage does not want to particularly put himself next to Tommy Robinson. I do accept that, but there are better ways of him to do this. I mean, he could have gone out of his way and said, you know what, I don't know who Tommy Robinson is, but unfortunately, because of his views, we don't particularly want to associate ourselves with him. And, I mean, there probably would have been a few complaints, but I don't think everybody would be as up in arms as they are right now. He could have said, we're not interested in Tommy Robinson, and we're not interested in anybody that supports him. He's not speaking negatively about us. He's not speaking negatively about Tommy Robinson. He's just saying, we don't want anything to do with him. And that's it. This problem would have been solved. Just like that. But Nigel didn't do that. There is a saying that I sometimes use, and that is, if you want to get the honey, you don't kick the beehive. Well, usually it's in a tree, so you'd have a hard time doing that. Anyway, you don't go and kick the beehive if you want to get the honey. It's as simple as that. You have to be diplomatic. And right now, he's been about as diplomatic as Vlad the Impaler. He needs to be reminded that we made that party, quite frankly. Hundreds of thousands of people from Tommy Robinson's side went out of their way to vote Reform, including myself in the general election. The fact that he went out of his way, and by the way, this was despite the fact that he libelously slandered us back in 2024. We still went out of our way to vote Nigel Farage. Yet, he still feels like he has the right to slag us off. Well, guess what? You keep doing this, bud, and those votes will disappear. Just like that. We'll find someone else to vote for if you don't want to respect our votes. If you keep doing this, Nigel, you are effectively going to push these people to the fringes. You really will push them to the far right. Notice the no air quotes for this one. But you really will push them over to the far right, where they will be lovingly embraced And then you will have a problem on your hands, because that will greatly increase the chance of a civil blank coming out. None of us here want it to descend into a civil blank. But the cold, bitter truth is, people like you, Nigel, you have the potential to set this all off, just as much as Keir the traitor Starmer does. Obviously, Keir the traitor Starmer is much more likely than Farage, as he's the one who's been locking up people for social media posts or daring to protest against the government on basically what Axel Reduku Banana was, or people who dare to criticise the government. They have been actively locking those people up while releasing all the K-Illers and all the arpists from prison. And all this, of course, including Woodhill, where they released 25 of those types of people in order to make sure Tommy Robinson had a wing to himself. All of the most atrocious crimes. But of course the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me, it doesn't suit the narrative. And I want to ask this directly to Nigel. How many people do you know that have gone to prison for contempt of court, that will potentially go back for contempt of court on the exact same charge of the documentary that was supposedly never to be released, even though it wasn't him who released it first, it was the Americans. And what they have tried to do, as I've said before, with the government trying to, the judges rather, trying to stop this documentary from being uploaded, which now I am starting to feel along the lines of Tommy should take it down, as he's already proven his point. What you've got to bear in mind, what you've got to bear in mind is, effectively, the government doesn't want that documentary out because it makes them look bad. But the thing is, there are so many people who have posted, reposted, downloaded that documentary. Do you honestly think that stopping Tommy Robinson from having that documentary uploaded is going to stop that documentary from being uploaded? Do you honestly think that the truth is going to be suppressed now that it's been shared to hundreds of millions of people? Frankly, you've got a better chance of finding Waldo whilst being restricted to a magnifying glass. Now, whether Tommy Robinson is a plonker or not, and some people will suspect he is, it doesn't change the fact that Nigel has stepped over the line way too many times, and it's going to bite him on the arse. I guess he should be thankful, though, that Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib have effectively done their own party, rather than trying to join one of the established ones. If Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe had joined UKIP, that would send a chill down Farage's spine, and it would certainly send a stroke number one, a chill down the spines of Keir the traitor Starmer and his Labour Party. That's pretty much the only thing that is dampening the blow right now for Farage, but he is not doing himself any favour with his own voters, quite frankly. Tice hasn't, Anne Widdecombe hasn't, Lee Anderson, the 20 pence hasn't. None of these guys are doing themselves any favour. Oh, what about the fact that they added, what was his fucking name? Charlie Mullins to the Reform Party. Yeah, they added that guy, the 20 pence, sorry, not the 20 pence guy, that was Lee. The guy who was a pandemic fanatic. He was effectively saying, if you haven't had a jab, you shouldn't have a job. Why do you think I've distanced myself from Reform? It's because I can see what they're up to. I can see the dishonesty, I can see the treachery, I can see the libelous slander for myself. I don't need anybody to convince me. I've seen it. I've seen what Farage is capable of. And he often backstabs, lies, does desperate things such as how he was like, oh, we won't mass deport, and then, lo and behold, the day before the election, we will mass deport. Guy who changes his principles on a whim. Nick Tenconi hasn't done that. Why do you think I've gone for UKIP rather than Nigel El Farage's Reform Party? Because that's the cold, bitter truth. Reform are the Uni Party 2.0 with a better mask. so as to hide their true intentions. We already know that Lib, Lab and Con, they're all part of the oligarchy. They are all part of the Uni Party. They are all part of the treacherous bastards that will do everything they can to sink the country. And obviously they need another party that isn't far left, because otherwise, if they're all far left, who the hell's going to vote for them? Whereas the Reform Party is effectively a perfect way for the oligarchy to try and reach out to the people who are in the centre of politics or on the right side of politics. It gives them that extra reach. It gives them the ability to try and get the votes that they wouldn't have otherwise. And there are close friends who have been with me since the start who are effectively saying, look mate, Reform are the only answer. Reform are what we've got to do in order to get rid of Labour. And maybe the closest you're ever going to get to me believing that shit is maybe we should have them in for 4 or 5 years and then kick them out and put UKIP in, quite frankly. Because Reform as a long-term solution, never going to happen. UKIP are the main long-term solution. The only way I'd probably see Reform as being any use to us is to basically take out the trash, metaphorically speaking, and get rid of the Labour Party from government, though the Labour government seems to be doing a very good job of that themselves. You can't expect people to be on board with a party that have effectively slandered those that voted for him. Remember, as I said, I voted Reform in the last general election. But after all that backstabbing shit that they've done, how they slandered us, there are some people who change their principles on a whim. I'm not one of them. I'd only vote Reform as an absolute last resort. Those are my principles and I am fucking sticking to them. And here's the thing, you have the right to vote for who you want to vote for. You have the right to have your opinion. I have the right to have mine. The only rule I have on my channel is basically you keep it respectful. But if anybody doesn't want to keep it respectful, then obviously I take out the trash. But I will say this much to the Reformian people out there, and that is, when it turns out what I've been saying is true, and you come to talk to me about it, if you've been one of those people that has just been completely blinded and just tunnel vision, I'm going to just simply say, I told you so. Because I have put it all out there for you. It's up to you to do your research and come to your own conclusions. You can't expect me to take all the blame when I have presented all the information there for you and then it turns out to be true. That's the thing. I do fundamentally believe that Reform may have some small use at kicking out Labour, at best. At worst, they are Uni Party 2.0, and I think you should be watching them very closely. But I think Nigel is effectively riding the cloud, as it were. He thinks he's on cloud 9 because he's gotten so many council seats and he is effectively absolutely demolishing Labour in the council elections. But he needs to be reminded, he is not king shit of Turd Mountain, quite frankly, and he should stop acting like it. He's more like Prince Turd of Bog Hill. Yes, you're in the shit now. Anyway, the fact is, Nigel needs to take his ego out of the equation. He needs to focus on the goal if he wants any chance of being able to beat Labour. If he wants to become Prime Minister, he needs to get his head out of his arse. He needs to, as I said, remove his ego from the equation. What is X then? I know. But he needs to do that, and he needs to apologise to all the people he slandered and insulted during those speeches. I suspect he won't because he's too proud of himself. That's the thing. Most career politicians are too proud of themselves to want to admit when they're wrong. And I do know the feeling all too well. It hurts having to apologise for something that you fucked up on. It really hurts to have to say, you know what, I've made a huge mistake and I'm really sorry. Most of the time when I make a mistake, it's usually just small things, so that's why I'm like, I fucked up and leave it at that. But if there was something that I truly messed up on, I would at least apologise for it. Whereas Nigel would probably bury his head in the sand and go la 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 with a mouthful of sand and hope it'll all go away. He needs to understand the more he insults the people who are voting for him, the more votes he's going to end up losing. And Runcorn is a prime example of where you can't really afford to lose votes, as people have been pointing out to me, because that one was won by Reform by 6 votes. Thank you. They won Runcorn by 6 votes. So you can imagine what would happen if 100,000 voters just left. Just like that. It would destroy his chances of becoming Prime Minister. So if I was Nigel Farage, I would be thinking very carefully about who he starts slacking off and insulting. Because before too much longer, that is going to well and truly bite Farage on the arse. He made a huge mistake by having Zia Youssef as one of his chairmen. He made a huge mistake when he slandered us by calling us far-right thugs. And he made an even worse mistake when he libelously slandered Tommy Robinson as a wife beater and a woman beater, knowing full well it was not true. Do you know what would happen if I ended up slagging off an MP in Labour, for example? I believe there was an example of a Labour MP who actually managed to basically claim damages against an MP or an ordinary person for basically calling him a PDF file or her a PDF file or something like that falsely. But what do you think would happen if I said, oh, Jess is a confirmed you-know-what? I'll tell you what would happen. She would be getting in touch with her legal team and I'd be getting letters through the door. Just like that. Because she would have a field day with people like me. Well, actually, no, she wouldn't, because I don't have that much in my account. But the point is, these people in these politician roles are snakes in the grass. Maybe the problem is for me, maybe the reason that I haven't had my membership card is because I wouldn't be able to make it as an MP, because you know one of the main qualities of an MP is to be able to lie through your teeth. Another quality of an MP is to sell your soul to the devil at the first given chance. Well, if the wanker gave me $1 billion instead of $1 million, maybe I would have given it to him. Anyway, he has to understand, they have to understand that they're not respected, these politicians, or at least the vast majority of them, because they don't really have many good qualities about them. Obviously, people like Rupert Lowe, Ben Habib, Stephen Wolfe, trying to think of a few others. I believe Godfrey Bloom was another one, though I think he's now ex-politician. There are a few exceptions to that rule, but unfortunately they are the exception and not the rule. So they really need to get their act together if they want to get the people's votes. Now, I will be talking about one last thing when I get inside the house, because this one is personal. Right, I made sure the thing is hidden this time. This is not planned, by the way. TV licensing letter. So yeah, didn't expect a TV licensing letter through my door. But we'll be talking about one Dan says stroke number 2. Dan to Saber for lol, I believe his name is. Yes, I was going to have a stroke at that name because it's so fucking awkward to pronounce. Very English name, said no one ever. But this guy effectively violated another woman. He went out of his way and gave her the RPE. And you can probably fill in the blank on what the second letter is, quite frankly. An illegal, I suspect, but he was claimed to have been an asylum seeker, because obviously nobody does background checks or anything when it comes down to asylum seekers, because why would we employ that rare resource these days called common sense? But this guy decided he was going to have his way with this woman, and it ended up damaging her social life, very understandably. And now she's having trouble to find the courage to actually go out places. This woman was assaulted, actually, by this man when she came out of, I believe the nightclub was Cube, if I recall correctly. That is with a Q, not a C. And I believe this was on Prince of Wales Road, and this wanker then decided to shoot off down Rose Lane to try and retreat and hide away and what have you. Lovely little specimen, isn't he? And he has recently been jailed for 13.5 years in prison, to serve 8 of them at His Majesty's behest. Frankly, he shouldn't be serving any time in this country. He should be serving that sentence back in his home country of Eritrea, because that's where this fucker comes from. And I believe some people will recall when I mentioned that little statistic I made about foreign nationals versus British nationals, or sorry, English nationals, for some of you who are offended with the term British. But anyway, he is among the Eritrean class, and the Eritreans, as I've mentioned before, are 20 times more likely than a English national to commit acts of an sexual nature. But that's something, of course, the mainstream media do not want to tell you. So, knowing that this guy is from Eritrea, and last time I checked, I don't think Eritrea has any ongoing blanks. Do they? I don't think they have any ongoing blanks, unlike Russia, or the 2 that we fought in to make sure we don't end up all speaking German. So why is he being labelled as an asylum seeker? If it was me, he'd be on the first boat, plane, jetpack, or catapult back to his home fucking country. Because we don't want vermin like this in our country. And yes, I do use a strong word like that on him, because that's exactly what he fucking is. Anybody that goes out of their way to fly over, boat over, or whatever to our country, to enter it illegally in almost an absolute case, and then break our laws and violate our women, I'm sorry, you're vermin. Period. And if it were down to me, he'd be out of this country just like that. He would be gone. Because I wouldn't want vermin like him in our country. Full fucking stop. As I said, Prince of Wales Road, Rose Lane, all in Norwich. You see why I said this is personal? These illegals are living in our fucking hotels. Our hotels, at the taxpayer's expense, bed and breakfast fully paid for. Recently turns out that they're also getting gym membership paid for, free of charge. That some of these hotels are getting shipments, potentially filled with weapons, delivered to their front door. And these people get free benefits. While we, the British people, have to bust a nut to be able to get even half the shit that they're getting right now. I have to pay for my swimming membership. My friend Mike has to pay for his gym membership. I don't see anywhere these illegal immigrants having to pay for that membership. Do you see why I get pissed off with this? Why should we be paying through the nose for vermin to come to our country and violate our women and children, desecrate our cultures, and break our laws? This is the thing. Unlike a lot of people, like Paul Thorpe, Richard Inman, Maya Toosey, etc., I'm not going to sugarcoat a motherfucking thing. I'm not going to mince my words. I'm going to say it exactly how it is, and I will do my best not to bullshit you. The cold, bitter truth is we have been giving a silk glove approach to all these illegals coming over here. And unfortunately, we cannot rely on Keir the traitor Starmer to actually deliver for us. We cannot expect him to deport these people, because he's on the side of the religion of Alan Snack Bars. He is on the side of those who are part of the GR ooming gangs. Therefore, we need a party that will do something about it. If we manage to avoid a civil blank in the meantime. Otherwise, if the police aren't going to do their fucking job and remove these vermin, we're going to come in and do it for them. And trust me, we will not be using the kid gloves approach. It will be more like, grab the vermin, chuck them off our streets, send them back to country of origin. Because that is exactly what they deserve. I guarantee you, any other country, if we decided to go over to one of their countries and do the same thing they're doing to us, I guarantee you we'd be out of there. Just like that. So, when are we going to start being robust on these fuckers? Begs the question. And of course, Nigel Farage, I wouldn't trust him to do it, considering he turns his principles on a dime. Basically, he turns what he basically wants to do, as far as deportation is concerned, on a literal dime, as I've already explained earlier in this video. Now, I will be doing this letter off screen, off camera, because obviously I don't want the same incident to happen again, where people are doxing me. So, this letter, obviously in a red envelope, because why else wouldn't it be? I fucking hate it when it does that. Don't worry, I'll clean it up after. But anyway, it starts off, big red letters. We did not hear from you. This address is still unlicensed, in black. Dear legal occupier, we wrote to tell you we were giving you 10 days to get correctly licensed, free from the risk of an enforcement visit. We have not had a response, so this address still does not have a TV license. And I don't fucking need one. What can you expect now? Your case has been escalated to the enforcement team covering my address. So you can now expect a visit from an enforcement officer. I've been waiting for this enforcement officer for fucking months and you still haven't turned up. Where are they? Because I would love to give them the door slam in the face treatment. If we find you've been watching or recording live TV without a license, you could be interviewed under caution and prosecuted for a criminal offence. It's not going to be happening, I'm afraid, because I don't watch TV, I don't watch anything on iPlayer, I don't record anything as it's being broadcast, I don't watch live TV, and basically, I don't watch anything on iPlayer. Therefore, I don't need a licence. All the stuff I watch is, or could be regarded as, catch-up TV. And usually it ends up being things like, if I'm going to watch anything, probably end up being Super Nanny, if anything. Though I'm more a fan of obviously watching things like Only Fools and Horses. I've bought the first series of Game of Thrones. I'm probably thinking about buying that and binging through that shit. I've been buying Only Fools and Horses because I'm a plonker. But I've been buying stuff and I've been doing my watching and all that shit legally. And let me be clear, I'm not encouraging people to break the law. If you do watch or record live TV as it's being broadcast, or anything on BBC iPlayer, or wherever they want to say, like Amazon Prime and what have you, you do need a TV licence. Now, to finish this off, a TV licence covers you for all TV channels, pay TV services like Sky, and live TV on streaming services like Amazon Prime Video. On any device, it also covers you for everything on BBC iPlayer. I've just explained all this. If found guilty, you may have to pay a fine of up to £1,000 plus any legal costs and or compensation. Most people usually only end up having to pay 200, 300 quid if they end up getting caught. And here's the thing, the only way they can actually find out if you've not got a TV licence or you're watching stuff illegally, and that is one of two ways. You let them in, or you let something slip. Bottom line is, it all comes back to you. Because all these people they like to pretend they're high and mighty, like fucking Bruce Almighty. Alrighty then. Yes, I know, that was Ace Ventura. Fucking sue me. Anyway, they like to think of themselves as higher than thou, holier than thou. They are not. They're glorified salesmen and nothing more. They have no right to enter your home. They have no right to force entry. They have no right to do anything without your consent. So all you need to do is, if you get somebody come along and say, hi, I'm from TV licensing. So you open the door. Hello, who are you? Hi there, I'm from TV licensing. Not interested, goodbye. That's it. Problem solved. They cannot investigate further. That is it. Now, some people will try to say, stroke number 3, remove their implied right of access, but that's not recommended, as that might raise their suspicions, and then they might be like, well, you know what, we're going to go up and get a warrant. Don't give them an inch. So I wouldn't recommend doing the implied rights of access. And here was me thinking I was going to have a nice, healthy 40-minute fucking video, and here I am on 3 strokes. God fucking damn it. Anyway, as far as that's concerned, as long as you know your shit, you're not breaking the law, and you're not watching anything illegally, you have nothing to worry about. What sometimes they will do, because it's actually been leaked in basically a secret recording, is basically what they'll do is sometimes they'll have, like, I know this is a spoon, but they'll have like the pen, and then they'll have a notepad, and they'll be like, they'll try to read your rights like that. Don't give them an opportunity to. Simply tell them, not interested, goodbye. Do not let them read that shit. Because they are not officers, they're not the police, they're not higher up than you, they are not anything. They're trying to sell you a service, and you should treat them like any other cold caller. Be courteous and polite, or don't be, I don't care, but obviously being courteous means, obviously they're not going to feel like you're being aggressive and what have you, but as soon as they identify themselves, tell them you're not interested, close the door, that's it, game over. They can't do anything else. And while you might get visited every now and again, generally speaking, as long as you stick to your guns, they can't do anything. And congratulations, you are effectively 160 fucking quid better off. What can you do with that, I wonder? Why don't you buy a couple of bottles of wine? Why don't you have a few beers down the pub? Why not buy a few flaming Zambucas, like old John Sweeney did? Because, at the end of the day, that's what the BBC racketeering group, and of course, the BBC themselves, love to do. Piss your taxpayer money up the wall. But the bottom line, as far as the other stories is concerned, is we should not be housing these illegals, period. All foreign criminals, all illegals that have come here and are living here, all need to go. And only Nick Tenconi and UKIP have stuck by those guns from the very get-go. Nigel changed his mind on mass deportations at the last moment to secure votes. Now, I don't know about you, but I think I know who I'd put my bet on if I had to choose between Nigel Farage and Nick Tenconi. And as I said, if it turns out that what I've said is true and that he really is part of the uni party, and people start coming over and saying, oh, we should have listened all those years ago. 3 words. Told you so. Simple as that. And as far as Nigel's concerned, he really needs to buck his ideas up. Because as I said, if he does not get his shit together, he's going to lose his votes. Just like that. All because he can't control his mouth and he can't control his ego. Pride does come before a fall. And if Nigel doesn't watch himself, he's going to fall with no safety net.